Okay, Dan, you want to fire us up?
Yes.
We ready to go? Okay, I'll call the Planning, Environment, and Development Committee meeting of June 4th to order. Go with roll call. Carolyn?
Here.
John? Here. Jim? Here. Carl?
Present.
And I'm here, and right now we're missing Lou Ness and Joe Gademauer. Go to public comments.
What about minutes approval?
Okay, we'll get the minutes to approve. Got a motion to approve the minutes from Carl, seconded by Carolyn. Is there any comment regarding the minutes from the May 7th meeting? No comments, we'll go to vote. All those in favor of passing the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Scott, anything on public comment?
There was nothing signed up?
Okay,
Last call for public comment?
public comment? You got anything to say, Ken? No? Okay. Just checking with you. Members' comments?
No.
No members' comments this
I got
morning?
nada.
Okay, we'll move to new business, routine consent agenda. We have note on the consent agenda this morning, so we'll move right to presentations. And drainage district viewer, McHenry County Interactive Drainage View. Are we ready to go with that? All right. Okay, I like the disclaimer.
So good morning, my name is Nicole Gattuso. I'm the Director of GIS, and today I'm back. I was here in February with Ernest Varga from the Division of Transportation, and we presented an in-depth view of the Drainage District Viewer. And at that meeting, we got feedback from the committee, and we discussed how it was a work in progress, and so I'd like to give you an update on where it's at today. So one of the things that we mentioned in that meeting was the boundaries we were still working on, and we're still getting documents from looking at the historic documents and looking at how it's changed over time. So I was going to give you an update on that, and during the meeting we got feedback that we should update the disclaimer to mention that it's a work in progress. So on updating the actual drainage district boundaries, we worked with the county clerk's office, who worked with the circuit clerk. For drainage district boundaries, anything that changes goes through the court. So the county clerk spent a lot of time going through the historic documents and verifying that everything that was in the tax database was up to date and accurate. And there was a few slight changes that were made, and then we pulled in the information directly from the tax database. So the boundaries that you see for the active drainage districts today is exactly how it's reflected in the tax database. So this was done in depth for the Hebron Drainage District. And we also worked on updating the disclaimer. And unlike our other disclaimers where you just hit okay, we have you check to make sure you're agreeing to it. And at the bottom, we mention that it's actively updating this map and as historic documents are covered. So from there, after updating the Hebron Drainage District, updating the disclaimer, we were able to launch the viewer, and on our county webpage, the public and then everyone can see where it is. So if you go to the GIS interactive maps and scroll down on the right-hand side, it's the last one that you can see. So there are two more active drainage districts. There's the Greenwood Drainage District 1 and Coon Creek. As I mentioned before, those boundaries have been updated to reflect exactly what's in the tax database. We'll work with the clerk to see if any more information is found. That information will be updated as well. And what are our next steps? We are working on updating that quilt. if you can remember when we did the demonstration, there was a lot of documents that had drain tile information on them. Those documents are when planning and development does a permit with any stormwater information, they're attached to that permit. So as they get those new permits in, they're going to provide them to our office to get them updated. And we're also excited to announce that the Division of Transportation hired a summer intern, and they're going to scan all of their documents, and those will also get on the map. So over time, that quilt is going to fill in, and the public and farmers and everyone is going to have access directly to what is available. Then another step is communicating with the public, in particular the McHenry County Farm Bureau. We did reach out to the Farm Bureau, and right now is their farm season and they don't have time necessarily to go over this, but later in the year we plan to meet with them and do a demonstration and get their feedback and let them know what is available. That is about all that I had. Just showing you, if you go to the McHenry County departments, under GIS, there's an interactive map page. And if you're not aware of this, we have a lot of different interactive maps that you probably would find helpful. For the unincorporated, we have the crime map. We have just a general parcel viewer with all the tax information. And then for planning and development, there's the plan dev viewer. But as you scroll down, we have one for the drainage district viewer. And so I demonstrated this with Ernest at our last meeting, but the green you could see are the active drainage districts that we have pulled in through the tax database. There is one that is pending, and that information came from the McHenry County Farm Bureau. So as that one becomes active, we will look at that one again. And then the inactive ones were mapped based on all the historic documents that were recovered. And then the quilt information that I mentioned, as you zoom in, those drain tile investigation locations come up, and then you can open those documents as they are there. So in this case, this is one of them. Again, we demonstrated it before, but I was just giving you an update. Do you have anything more to add? Ernest Vargas in the...
Yeah, I have continued working with GIS. The data continues to come in, and we even met last Friday, and from then till now, we did a little bit of additional research. We found additional imaging within Recorder's Office, which we're going to input onto the map as well. The drain tile maps are extremely helpful, and in addition to the ones that we have at DOT for bridge and road projects, which are coming online, the Planning and Development Department has them for ongoing projects due to the stormwater ordinance, which was implemented, which requires it if one is even suspect. And then there are also the communities that are certified by P&D that will have others. So in addition to the historic data, we'll be inputting this newer data. And the significance of the quilt will be, as pieces start to form, if someone goes to do something and there are pieces around that one, but nothing on it, they'll at least have an idea. There are drain tiles here, there are none up there, this is going the right direction. So the quilt will be of great value. As far as the ones coming online, in theory, all 43 could come online. What it requires is a board action in each case. And the one that is pending, Farm Bureau, that group has decided they would like to, so they're putting their paperwork together. When they eventually submit to the board, they will then require three people to be in charge of it, to be appointed, and then it will become online. Once it goes online, it becomes a taxing entity. So all 43 of these could become live in theory, and it would be a board action. But as we're trying to keep up with the information, collecting old, gathering new, it is going to truly be an interactive map. And GIS department has done a phenomenal job in light speed in a very short period of time since last, was it August or September, somewhere in there?
Yeah, last August.
Last August. So kudos to GIS, and that's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, it looks good, and we knew this was gonna be a ongoing progress.
Yes, yeah.
Situation where it's gonna take a year or so, so I think it looks great with this, the parts here that you got started on are fantastic. Does anybody else you have anything else, Nicole, you wanna add, or Jim, go ahead, you want a question?
The drain tile investigation, you had that one little area for the solar farm. All these other solar farms that we had passed, did they have tile investigations on all those? Weren't they supposed to?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we started implementing this, we didn't get all the documents from planning and development because they have to go through each one of their permits and find that information. But the plan is to go back eventually and get those historic documents from past permits and put them in as well, so.
Okay, reason I was asking is our last board meeting, one of the board member, Von Bergen, brought up a solar farm that has water issues. And I'd like to see if that had a tile investigation and everything on that one, so.
You know, that's a good point, Jim, and maybe that, if you're gonna go back through these documents, maybe that would be one of the first ones we should be looking at. And it's over by Richmond, but I don't know the exact details on that. If you need to, I'm sure Tracy Von Bergen could tell you exactly where it's at.
There are two currently going into Richmond. One is on the west side of North Solon Road, just south of Hillside, yeah. And the other one is on the northeast corner of West Solon Road and 31. So
Okay.
it would probably be one of those two. Those are the two going in Richmond.
I think it's the first one that she was mentioning, the field that
Okay.
saturated.
Right, so there is an issue with the first one that was mentioned, as we seem to be confirming here.
I think-
Maybe that would be the first one that we could go back to the historical documents and look at.
Okay,
That
great.
works for you.
You may even have North Solon on here because of the ones that P&D provided. What P&D did, as you can tell, we're all doing catch-up, including DOT. And what they did is they grabbed everything they had at that point, which probably would have been October, November last year, and they just said, well, here's a set. And so that's what's there. I believe that's the one that is, that's the one on North Solon and Hill. And so P&D is working on more as they come in and also past, and we are working on our past and then as they come in as well. And can you pull back up that
sure.
map just a second? For most of you, I'm sure the map is like, yeah, so what is it? Just so you can understand, the Huddleston McBride group, they were in charge of drain tiling, and they've kind of gone into the studies. They plot where drain tiles are. They also do slit trench excavations to see, okay, we think there's one here, 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 and you can see multiple cuts. This is where they determined one. As they hit the ones where they actually saw it, they then say, it's about this deep underground. It's this diameter. It's this material, clay, RCP, whatever it is. So this is the mapping that came in with their permit. If there's an issue going on, although this is the overall, there is also one more here, I'm sorry. Although this is the overall property, they're kind of focusing their solar farm in that upper quadrant. So you can see all the places they tested. If they're having issues with water, it's probably along that old line. And the other difficulty is, it's fine to say there's a line. It's fine to say, okay, we're going to dodge it with our posts that we're going to put solar farms in. Sometimes the equipment that they run over it, though, if it's an old clay tile from 100 years ago, it doesn't take that much to put enough weight to crush it. So you could have everything plotted, everything great, correct permit issuance, everything else, and all of a sudden you start getting water buildup. And add to that a beautiful spring with lots and lots of rain. And you're sure to get buildup of water. So, but this is one of the ones, and it is already in the quilt starting.
But if it's mapped and they do crush it,
Yes.
Would they be required to fix it then? Or, I mean, is there some way?
If you utilize, drainage along the state of Illinois goes back into the 1800s. And one thing says, you cannot change the flow of the water off of your property. Neither quicker, more, anything else. So in theory, because a backup here could affect upstreams, a backup here could affect amount coming off of you, yes, you should fix it. I'm sure there's going to be consternation from the group because it's one thing, I'm sure many of you have seen where you'll see a farmer out there fixing a field tile. Well, it's very easy. They have all the space in the world. You know, only God will stop them going up. Now, you're looking at a grid with elements on top of it, and you're saying, okay, now dig down 6 or 7 feet, find this and patch it. They're going to balk and say, well, do we really have to? And they may be fighting for the fact, well, if we can push this off a month, the rains will go away, this thing's gonna dry up because it'll trickle out slowly, and maybe everybody will go away. So it's somewhat a commercial end of the world.
Yeah, okay. Jim, do you have something else?
So, thank you, Ernest.
No.
This is my issue. You know, they don't drill the holes for those posts and set them, they pound them. So when they do it, they're going right through the tiles and everything else, don't even know they hit them. And this is my issue, that I don't care what the state law is, says they can do anything they want. They cannot do that, what they're doing. And that's something that we need to put into all documents and saying it has to be fixed. And there's no argument about it. The landowners around them should not have to take these folks to court, which takes years. When this, you know, this drainage law, it becomes a personal civil or personal issue for lawsuits for them. And they have to bring it on personally to them. Now they're fighting a big solar farm on this. And we should handle this up front. And we should not only require the mapping, but make them prove that those tiles are functioning properly. And in that bonding that's issued, there should be a separate bond for drainage in there. A separate bond.
Carl, go ahead.
Jim, this may be pointed to you. You know what a perk test is for a septic, to see if it's functioning. Couldn't there be something done up front? You know, they've got the roadmap for their tiles. We've tested the tiles that they're good at the beginning before they say, hey, we're done, and, you know, give us our occupancy. Another test is done. If that fails, we hold the permit and you all fix it. Is there something that could be done like that?
I don't know that answer, but this is my point about that, is they should be proving that that tile is functioning. You know, that tile might not be functioning, but they should repair that tile before they even do this and set it along the line. So when they do their study, they should be proving that that tile is functioning, or if it's broken already. And then it should be repaired in the process of our solar farm being built upon that. Because once those panels are up, how are you gonna take a machine in there and put a new tile in?
Yeah.
You're not. So it needs to be done beforehand. And I think we should put that into our requirements. And I think there should be no violation of their so-called state law. They can't let them have everything with, you know. So I'm just gonna put that.
Mr. Vargas, did you have something more you wanted to add?
Yeah, in deference to what Jim is saying, and we need to go through state's attorney, and of course, there is a member of the legal world here. You do have precedence in the fact that the drainage laws supersede the current laws that say solar farms are sacrosanct. You could theoretically put together something such as you're saying, and I'll use a backwards example, which is DOT. In the event we are doing a road, in the event that we know there are field tiles, part of our specs become, okay, within the right-of-way where you're working on that road, you're gonna pick up the tile here, pick up the tile here, you're going to fix it, whether it's broken or not. I mean, it may be broken, it may not, and you're going to bring it up to current standard materials. So maybe a clay tile there and there, but hey, you're gonna do reinforced concrete pipe across here because you're right. So in theory, but now I would have to defer to the legal end of the world because I don't know how much or what type of teeth the current law has. I know we have to fight tooth and nail because one thing that still happens, even with a solar farm, we get the right-of-way dedicated per the ordinance that the county passed prior to the initiation of the new state law. So we're still getting that. It would take a little bit of moving on multiple levels at the county to do it, but in theory, it could be said that when you encounter a tile, replace the whole tile. But that's going a long way out, but I was trying to address what you were saying, Jim.
Thank you, and so I'll defer to Adam here. And Stoyan, can our tech commission create that part for our stormwater ordinance? Can we create that and run that through the state's attorney to check that out?
And some of it, as Ernest talked about, some of it's already in place. So as, with particular this site, we were out there and we spoke with the project manager for it. It's still open. It's not a closed issue or closed matter, and we'll have the leverage if we find out exactly what it is, whether it was a punctured tile. The operator seems to believe that they opened up a clog, that they opened up a clay tile clog on one of those lines, and now it's flowing like it hasn't flowed in years past. And where they're kind of landing that that's likely the case, at least in their initial position, is they've been done with the pile driving since March. So February, March, they were done, and then this complaint came in, or this concern came in early May. It doesn't mean it's completely the case. Could have just been, groundwater, whatever it may have been, but we're still looking into that in terms of what it would be. And we're confident that if there is, we have the authority to have them make the changes. To your point, they're not gonna be able to do it the way they could have done it a year ago with those panels in place or with any of that stuff. So that's on them. Means and methods are always going to be on those that are gonna be responsible for making those cleanups and those repairs. Sorry, Jim.
No, thank you, and my point is, we should do this ahead of time and make them, if it's a clay tile, replace it with updated plastic and everything. We should put that right in our ordinance, that if we're gonna do solar farms, they're gonna be there for 40, 50, 100 years, we should fix it, because in 50 more years, those clay tile aren't gonna be functioning. And you will have no means, there won't be any means to put tile through there. And so that's what I'd like to see in our.
That one we wouldn't have authority for, but yeah, I mean, at this point, we can work towards it, yeah.
Right, for
That's the
future
goal.
ones at least.
Okay.
I mean, I hear there's some 1,000-acre ones being proposed.
And they're still driving their vehicles in between the panels that may clip a tile, right?
Well, those opposed to are causing most of the damage.
The clay,
But, downrange, like you said, 20, 30 years.
Right.
the old clay tile are really susceptible to that kind of damage. If they did put new tile in. Where do we go with it, Adam? We can put something together, talk to the state's attorney's office, see if we have any authority to do anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if that's the direction we want to go, we could take a swing. It's a big swing. I'll say that. I mean, it's adding a big line item to the project cost. And so there might be some balking at it, but at the same time, I understand it would go a long way towards eliminating that issue,
Well,
and definitely the concern.
right, but if those tile get damaged, I mean, how many acres are the neighbor's property that he's not planting now? So that's a huge amount of money.
Huge
too.
amount too.
And to no fault of his.
Yep.
So if that's the case, so.
Yeah, the impacts definitely are, they cover a greater area than just the job site.
And as they open the flow, by the way, as they possibly open the flow is probably running up one of the posts. It's that third of the double.
The other thing too, that flow, as you open that flow, could go to the land to the west or the east or the south or the north that has a clogged drain on it, and you're gonna flood the guys down. This is a can of worms.
It's a troublesome
This is a
thing,
can of
sure.
worms, because it might be flowing on this piece that you're gonna keep it flowing, or it might be clogged, you're gonna fix that clog to a tile that is non-flowing on either side of that property that you're gonna flood.
But the neighboring parcels can fix
You're gonna
their
see that
tiles.
there's gonna be, careful what you wish for on this.
Not at all. The neighboring parcels can fix their tiles. They have the ability. That
I'm just
parcel under
saying
the
that,
tiles has
every
no
action
ability.
causes a reaction.
Yeah, they should.
Well, if we take it one step at a time, the state's attorney might come back and say we don't have the authority to do that because of the new state laws anyway. So maybe we could look into it and you could get back to us at the next.
Legislative committee.
All right,
See the legislative committee tell them to get working in Springfield.
yeah.
Well, remember, the drainage law should
Wishful thinking.
supersede this law.
Well, I think it has in terms of time, absolutely. But I think John's got it correctly. Many of these tiles, and you know this, because the districts have
Not
collapsed.
abandoned, but, you
They're
know,
abandoned and they're functioning marginally. But you've got tiles that are clay tiles that were designed the last 50 years that have been in for 100. They're broken all over the county, and they get fixed when they have to be, when it starts costing the farmer money. Until then, they don't. And, you know, I don't disagree with you that it's a lot cheaper to fix it up front for that particular piece of property. But I also know that I've never met a solar entity yet that actually wants to spend any more money getting set up.
Exactly.
yeah, it's almost cheaper to replace them than repair them though.
That is,
Jim's
'cause you
right,
gotta
but I'm telling you, this is gonna be a careful what you wish for thing, because there are property owners downstream that are gonna feel like, because they've been abandoned for 50 years, right? So when they start working, they're gonna send water
So they're
that
gonna
they
get water
haven't
that
seen
direction.
for 50 years.
If
It'll be
there was-
interesting to see how this works
If
out.
there wasn't water there before, there is now. That tile was working originally.
That's true, Jim, that's true.
Could be the case. Okay, Adam, you can check on that, put it on the agenda for next month, see if there is anything we can do towards that end. Nicole, great presentation, thank you. I think it's great the way we have a coordinated efforts here to put this together. It's coming along great. Scott, did you have something else you
Love your
want?
site, by the way, I use it a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just, if I could, I just want to actually thank Nicole for her leadership on this project and her team for all the hard work. As you can see, we said going into, it's a massive undertaking, and it required a compilation of documents from all different ages, all different sources. But I think what's really important and what I'm really proud of is just the collaboration among multiple different departments, DOT, the clerk's office, GIS, just coming together, recognizing the strategic goal that you put out in your plan that said, this is important, we should have this, and you've addressed those reasons why for the greater good of the county, and your team got it done. And now it's in place, it's available for public view, and it's always going to be updated. And as we get new information to come in, we'll just keep appending it. So I think, from a public policy standpoint, this checks all the boxes of a very good success.
Yeah, I agree. The collaboration is fantastic, and what you have done so far is impressive. So
Thank you.
look forward to when you get new updates and you want to come back. That would be great.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much
Anyone
for
else have
having me.
anything else?
No,
Okay.
great job.
It's very nice.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
Great job.
great, thank you. Good on that one. So now, I see Carrie working very hard over there. Wanting to
That's a
come
tough
forward
act to
and,
follow.
I
So, you know.
agree, it's,
Thank you.
How come the budget isn't this
no, I
simple?
can be more interesting.
Great.
okay, we're gonna have an introduction to the budget software for the 25 budget presentations presented by Carrie.
Is that why we have such a crowd?
They're coming from all over the country. We have an international visitor here too. Flew in from Canada.
Okay, so as we're finalizing the audit and now we're starting to look forward to budget time, Pete and I were talking a little bit, planning, how we're gonna do things, and just kind of taking some of the things we learned from last year. We were given directive to move quicker than we had in the past through the budget presentations. But based on some of the questions and what we thought about at the end, maybe it was a little too fast and it was somewhat to the detriment of the newer board members where, you guys get so much information, just coming up with a better process to help you keep it straight or even having a better avenue to ask questions. So what we're doing this year is we have two tools. So Questica is the software that we use to actually develop the budget, the number budget. And then we partner with ClearGov, which ClearGov helps us to build the GFOA budget document. So the easiest way to find it is if you go out into departments under finance and then budgets. Once we open up the 2025 budget process, I will add a link here that says like 2025 draft budget. So you can just click on it. We're also going to include this link in your budget packets. We'll also have the printed out stuff, but also interactive links if that would be helpful for you. So just pretend the 2025 draft budget's here. If you click on it, it will take you into Questica. And so I built a spotlight that's just for the 2025 draft budget. And so I know it would be nice if we had it fully integrated, but like I said, we have one in ClearGov, one in Questica. So I tried to use this spotlight to just make it one place where you can come to it. So another thing we talked about in the budget policy, I know there's some discussion with the strategic plan, is having more of a focus on what all the departments do, their functions, their service, to kind of create an inventory, which we already have that. That's one of the requirements for the GFOA budget document, but to kind of clean it up, revisit it, expand on it, make it a little easier to look at. So, I just did a little write-up talking about why it's more of a focus this year. So here, I have a link for ClearGov. So ClearGov, you can actually come in here and look at the full budget document for 24. That's what this link was, in case you guys are interested. But ClearGov is really a great tool because right now the printed budget document is 400 to 500 pages. And it's just, there's a lot of good information, but it's really hard, I think, for the average reader to get exactly what they need. So ClearGov is nice because in the full document, it has a whole bunch of tabs, but here we just sectioned out the part for the departments. So you can come in, you can easily find whatever department you want to look at, whatever department budget we're presenting, and you can look at it. And so kind of the focus this year is going to be on this first page where they talk about the services. Actually, it's kind of interesting, when I'm doing this, to remember like how some of the departments were started, whether they're mandated or by state statute, or if they were created with resolution or through budget. So it talks about that. And then it talks about functions. This is assessment, so functions, what we have to do, some functions that the county board has given directive. And so some of the things we're going to add to this is what is the impact of those functions? If we can assign like a financial impact, we will do that. But maybe just expanding on this stuff and why it's important, or maybe if the voters or the board thinks it's not important, then that's a different discussion. So we'll focus on this, but also too, if you remember in your budget package, we always have highlights and goals, FTEs, and then the org chart. So this is kind of the non-financial piece of the regular budget that we put out. So then to get to the number part, we can go into Questica. So I really try to make the spotlight easy for, some people want very high level, some people want all the details, so I tried to make it, that's why it seems like a lot. But if you really want to dig in, if you come into here, and I don't have 25 open yet, but when we do, this top number will be 25. So you can come in here, you can look at it by fund, and you can drill down. Let's say I want to see general fund, and I want to see the category, because I think you guys are used to seeing fund and then category, which just summarizes the main accounts. I think that's the lowest level. But then if you really want to get into it, if you want to look at general fund, and this is sorted highest to lowest, but you can sort however, then non-departmental, and then the categories, and then main account, which is the most detailed information that we have in Questica. So it's really, help you get more information, but also some of the feedback I got was people felt overwhelmed with even what questions to ask. So, if you have a little bit more detail, you can talk about it. Ask me, you guys can always ask me questions, I get excited. And then also too, for people that really want to dig in, down here in this data export, you can open it and it pulls up, it's pretty, I mean, it's not pretty with all the pictures and stuff, but it has all the information by line. I'll clean this stuff up. So if you want to come in and filter by fund or category or however you want to do it. But my only warning, I guess, on doing this is if you ever want to go through every line with this, I would be, I would be happy to talk about it with you. But I guess if you're digging in on your own, just keep in mind that the funds, we have, I think, about 40 funds. They all operate on their own. So each fund is separate. And then also too, especially in the general fund, sometimes things may seem out of context. Like if we see a huge increase in health department personnel, it's probably because we also have a huge increase in grant revenue. So just kind of keep that in mind. There's lots of moving parts, but if you really want the detail, it's available. Or even if you just want to highlight some things and we can talk, we can go that route as well. So that's it. We just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up that maybe in the July meetings, probably more likely in the August meeting, especially for this committee, you'll see the packets will look slightly different. We're just going to print it out from here, give you guys links. But really it's the same information. We just try to make it a little more user-friendly. So everyone goes out and looks at it.
Good.
Next chapter, next month, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure once it's rolled out, you guys will have questions. But like I said, you can always call me.
Does anyone have any questions for Carrie right now? Jim, go ahead.
It was a tough act to follow, but I love this because I've never seen it have been shown. What have I been here? 7 years, 7 or 8, and I've never seen this presentation before of how to go find this stuff.
Well, and we, last year was I was new to this position. I was trying to figure out the best way forward, but we were using some of the same tools we were using for like the past 15 years, and it's like, it just has to be a better way. And then honestly, on the finance side, we spend a lot less time on like formatting and stuff like, that's not my area of expertise. And then, then we can focus more on the content. And so, but also too.
Thank you so much though, because this really will help.
Yeah. And also, just so I can do a plug for every budget document. If you want to come out, or even sometimes like my brother yesterday was talking to me about paying his property tax. I'm like, and I said, because I'm like, I'm talking about the transparency portal. And I said, well, go out and look. And then if you have questions, but this is the full document. So there is tons of stuff in here that people ask questions on a lot. And I know this is obviously for 24, but also the nice thing about ClearGov is once 25 is adopted in November, we just upload the data and we can have all this other stuff ready. So we can have the budget document out in much more real time. So it can be beneficial for the board, the taxpayers, whoever, so.
Okay, anyone else?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. That looks
Thank
good.
you.
Look forward to seeing that in July or maybe August.
Probably, because I think just planning and development comes to this one, right?
Yeah.
But for your other committees too. I'll be
See
back
you
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
I know, that's what, we were trying to make sure we saw everyone without seeing too many people multiple times, but.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Old business. Nobody has any old business to talk about right now unless,
Don't forget Mr. Hartman.
unless Scott wants to do his presentation under old business.
Whenever Whenever you're ready.
I think that'd be you know what? Why don't we let Renee go first and then she can get back to work if she needs to. Renee, what do you want to? If that's okay, yeah, that'd be, keep the payroll people working and, so. What do we have, Renee? Anything exciting that we can do anything about?
So for this month, you have 6 on the consent agenda, 3 are solar farms, 3 are very straightforward variations. So they all come with recommendation for approval on the consent, but you do have one on the regular agenda. It's on the regular agenda because the hearing officer has recommended denial for half of it and approval for the other half. There's a lot of neighbors that are opposed as well. This is the niece petition. It's a little complex. These people, they live in a subdivision on 4.7 acres. And the last 2 years, I believe, although we were only called last year to get involved in this, they host this live event that's based on the television show Survivor. So it goes out live on YouTube or whatever format. So it's an online thing. They set up the obstacle courses, they camp apparently on the property and all sorts of business. So last year the neighbors complained, and that's when it came to our attention and we got involved in it. So we told them, if you're going to do this event again, you have to get a special entertainment event, temporary entertainment event permit. So they came in and asked for that. And first of all, with the changes that we made this year, they're less than 5 acres. So they needed a variation from that part of it. They're 4.7 acres. So the hearing officer did find that they met the standards for that variation. So he recommended approval for that portion. Then they do this thing, it lasts for a week, a whole week. We only allow these events to last for 3 consecutive days. So they also asked for a variation to do a 7-day event versus the allowed 3-day event. And the hearing officer found that they did not meet the standards for that variation and recommends denial for that. Which means if you guys wanted to overturn him, you would need the 14 votes to do that. And the ordinance will be written in the affirmative for both.
But it requires 14 votes to approve it.
To approve it.
Done this how many years before? How many times has this happened? Twice?
They did it twice, I believe. I think the first year was pretty low key, but we got calls last year because it was, I guess, a much bigger production company, a lot more cars, and they even had a helicopter coming in and dropping people off and picking people up, so. And the neighbors have been very vocal.
They don't necessarily, you don't have permission to just drop in a helicopter.
Helicopters do a lot.
They can do a lot, but they usually require
Some kind of a
permit to have if you're gonna have a landing zone on your property.
So they actually landed the helicopter on the property?
That's what the neighbors.
So in the last 2 years, I didn't mean to interrupt, Joe.
No, that's all right.
In the last 2 years, did they have a permit for this?
No,
So they did
No.
it without any type of permit?
no
The last
type
2
of
years.
permit, and we didn't know until last year.
Okay. Where's this property at?
It
Close.
is at 6310 Roundup Road in McHenry. It's a rural subdivision that's surrounded by incorporated McHenry.
Interesting.
I mean, did they do it as a business or a party?
Business.
Are they making any money?
I don't know.
Okay, anyone else have, go ahead, Carolyn?
Yeah, so this vote can be in 2 parts, right? Or I mean, the way I'm looking at it, but go ahead.
No, I believe that the ordinance will just be that you guys approve the variation. It'll be written in the affirmative for both variations.
Which is if we prove it, then we are approving the denial by the hearing officer?
No, if you're approving it, you're approving it, both variations.
But they're gonna be lumped together, but the hearing officer handled them separately, so
Yes.
why
Can't
would
do
we?
one without the other
So,
anyway.
right, right. So practically, it's both of them. You'll have to have a 14, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I suggest everybody in the committee review that petition closely and be ready to speak to it at the meeting if we need to.
One of the consents ones was it on Route 23. Somebody called me on one on Route 23 yesterday, and I couldn't tell them off the top of my head whether it was up this month or not. I was like, I don't know. It was a trucking yard on Route 23.
No,
Okay,
that is,
all right, it's fine. If it's not up, it's not up. I just didn't know.
that's the freight terminal probably.
Is that on 23?
Yeah. It's a little ways out.
All right, no problem.
Down by 90?
No, it's up north. It's by Jay Filler's old office is where they described it to me. And I'm like, I hadn't heard anything about it, so.
Thank you.
Jay's not there, but the office is still there.
I know, but but in terms of a bearing, they might have known where. I don't know.
Or my wife goes somewhere every day that I don't know about it. Okay.
To tell you about that.
Future topics? Not seeing anything, executive session, Scott? Oh, I'm sorry, Scott.
Oh, we're trying to get out of that.
Yeah, Scott is here and would like to give us a quick update on our spongy moth situation. Where's your display?
Oh, well, I could bring that out for,
I think,
well, just a quick update to, since the county did not engage in a program, we are committed to monitoring the spongy moth population within the county. The two hotspots that we were really focused on last year, we were well aware of, one in south of Bull Valley and one in Marengo. I've confirmed that the one in Marengo doesn't seem to be as bad this year. In fact, it's almost as not remarkable with the amount of spongy moths that they've seen very little compared to last year. I've not heard from Mr. Vanderspool on his property and the neighboring properties about what his condition is like, and I'll keep trying to reach out to him. Hopefully he'll just let me know. We do have one verified hotspot. It is bad. In fact, I even drove there yesterday evening. It is on East Crystal Lake Road, so east of 31, maybe half a mile down. And there's one neighbor, one property in particular has several oaks. You can actually see the defoliation already occurring. They've got a mess of gypsy moth. So we're not sure where that came from. It didn't show up in the data last year, or we didn't have a good data point for any population, but apparently there were several egg masses that hatched because they were crawling all over the property. I feel really bad for these residents in particular. I've asked them to work with their neighbors to see what is the state of spongy moths on the surrounding properties, and they're still working with that. But the defoliation really looks limited to just kind of their property, which is interesting. So that's the update. One hotspot that I know of, and I'm sort of keeping my ears and eyes open for any more. We did have one area that was sprayed by the neighbors, about 300 acres along Fleming Road. This is one area that was determined as a possible candidate for spraying if the county were to do something. Residents took it upon themselves. They engaged Henderson's Flying Service and they did some spraying. Last year, that area was very, very bad, so we'll of course monitor and see how effective that spraying was. That's the update of the status of spongy moths that we know of today. If you hear of anything or if you have residents that bring it to your attention, please let me know. We like to keep track of potential hotspots. So what we're going to do, starting with today's issue of Thrive, which is one of the county's newsletters that going out, we're going to ask our citizen scientists to help us deploy spongy moth traps. Here's what they look like. You've probably seen them over the years hanging in the trees. What these do, traps are not intended to take the spongy moths and get rid of them. All this really is a data collection device. This will have a pheromone strip in it, and we want to deploy these towards the end of June, probably June 20th is the target. We have 75 to deploy. Actually, I have 100 of these, and only 75 pheromone strips. So 75. We want to target some of the hot spots. We're going to prioritize where they'll go. I would like to get a good cross-section throughout the county, but we're going to do a call for citizen scientists to help us deploy these. And part of it is, it's not just hanging these in your tree in June, but in August, that's when the dirty work happens, because you actually have to take this apart and you count how many male moths are attracted. There's little ports that go into, they'll be attracted to the pheromone strip. And what that does is that's where we get our numbers. So if you have 100, little moths or sludgy moths in here, then that's our data point. We know that there's 100. And then we can get a good picture of where the population is within the county. And really what's going to be interesting is two things. Number one, is it going to be as extensive as it was last year, if you remember your data maps? And number two, have the populations changed over last year? Because, they're moths, they move. One, as I was saying, this is they call it a trap. It's not intended to get rid of them. It's, not like a mosquito abatement or not to mitigate the population. All it is just for the males, which can fly, and the females don't, to come in and come to that lure strip, and then they get stuck in here, and then that way we have that data point. So it's not going to get rid of any caterpillars. It just lets us know where the populations are. But we need the community's help, and if anybody's interested in helping us and being our citizen scientist, please reach out to me, Scott Hartman, Deputy County Administrator. My email address is sehartman@mchenrycountyil.gov, and we look forward to the community's assistance. And I see several citizen scientists sitting right before me, so we'll look forward to your help as well.
I might just do that, because I definitely have a woods next to me. That might be a good spot for one. Okay, thanks, Scott. That's it. Anybody got any questions for Scott or anything on that? Okay. Appreciate that, Scott. Keep us up to date. No executive session needed.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Gadamoller, seconded by Carl. All those in favor to adjourn?